For 16 years, one woman really stood at the absolute center of European and global politics. Angela Merkel. She was Germany's first female chancellor and, get this, the first one to have grown up behind the Iron Curtain. Her story is one of the most unlikely you'll find in modern history. So let's dive in and figure out how she pulled it off.
And that's really the big question we're tackling here. I mean, think about it. How does a quantum chemist from communist East Germany climb her way to the very top, becoming arguably the most powerful woman on the planet? It's an absolutely incredible journey. Just look at these two photos. They tell the whole story, don't they? On one side, you've got this quiet, studious scientist in a lab, and on the other, a commanding world leader, totally at ease next to the most powerful people on Earth. The real question is, how on earth did she get from point A to point B?
All right, so to really get a handle on who she was as a leader, we've got to go back to the beginning. Her unique origins, they shaped a political style that would become her trademark. Cautious, super pragmatic, and with this deep, almost scientific understanding of complex systems. See, Merkel was never a career politician. She was a physicist, a pastor's daughter, who spent the first 35 years of her life in East Germany. And that scientific training, that methodical, evidence-based way of solving problems, well, that became the absolute hallmark of her leadership style. Now, here's something you probably didn't know about Merkel. She's actually one-quarter Polish. This photo here is her grandfather, and he even fought against Germany in World War I. It's this complex piece of her identity that she really only started talking about publicly in the 1990s. And this story, it's just a fantastic little peek into her character early on. When the Stasi, the infamous East German secret police, tried to recruit her as a spy, she found this brilliant way out. She just told them she was way too much of a gossip to keep a secret. It was a really risky move, but it showed this quiet strength she had long before she got into politics. So when the Berlin Wall came down in 1989, that was basically the starting gun for her political career. And I mean, look at this timeline. Her rise wasn't just fast, it was absolutely meteoric. She joins a new party in 89, becomes a government spokesperson in 90, a minister by 91, and then, in just over 15 years, she's leading Europe's biggest economy. Just incredible. Her political mentor, Chancellor Helmut Kohl, had this famous nickname for her, Mein Mädchen, which means my girl. And yeah, it sounds super patronizing now, and it was them too, but it also shows just how much she was underestimated in that male-dominated world, a fact she learned to use to her advantage, time and time again. So all that early political stuff, turns out it was just a warm-up for what would really define her time in office, crisis management. She became known as the ultimate steady hand, the leader you absolutely wanted in the room when everything was falling apart. And I'm not kidding. The crises just kept on coming. First, the global financial meltdown, then the near collapse of the euro, the largest refugee movement since World War II, and to top it all off, a global pandemic. And through every single one, she was the one at the helm. Take the Eurozone crisis. Her leadership there was absolutely critical. Through these tough, relentless negotiations and a laser focus on keeping the European Union together, she's widely credited with basically saving the single currency from completely disintegrating. And this is where you see her two worlds just perfectly crash into each other. When the COVID-19 pandemic hit, that scientific background of hers became this incredibly powerful tool. She was able to get on TV and explain complex ideas, like the R number, with a kind of clarity that, frankly, no other world leader could even come close to. She gave this incredibly rare national address, which is not something German chancellors do often, and she framed the pandemic with this powerful historical comparison. She got everyone to understand the gravity of the moment, calling for a kind of unity that hadn't been seen since Germany's post-war reconstruction. But for all those crises we just talked about, there was one that would come to define her chancellorship more than any other. It was a moment that led to both incredible praise and some of the fiercest condemnation of her entire career. It all came down to three simple words: Wir schaffen das. We can do this. This became her mantra during the 2015 migrant crisis. It was the statement of profound optimism and pure resolve, right in the face of a massive humanitarian challenge. And you remember the images, right? They were everywhere. Hundreds of thousands of refugees, most of them fleeing war, arriving at Europe's doorstep. And in that moment, Merkel's government made this huge, momentous decision to open the doors and just let them in. Let's just put a number on this because the scale is just mind-boggling. In a single year, Germany registered around 1.1 million asylum seekers. That number alone shows you the enormous challenge, logistically, socially, and politically, that the country decided to take on. But a decision that big, well, it was always going to have a massive political price tag. It created deep divisions within her own political family. It fueled anti-immigration protests, and it led directly to the rise of the far-right AfD party, which got into the German parliament for the very first time. And that really brings us to today, to her legacy. Because since she left office, and especially since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, people are starting to see her 16 years in power in a totally new and sometimes much harsher light. This really lays out the two sides of the coin, right? On one hand, she's praised as the steady hand who held Europe together. But on the other, the criticism is getting louder and louder. Did her policies, especially toward Russia, actually create the massive problems we're facing today? And the criticisms are pretty specific and very serious. Think about it. Even after Russia grabbed Crimea in 2014, her government doubled down on that Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline. At the same time, the German military was shrinking. And then there's the big one. Her role in personally blocking Ukraine from getting a path to NATO membership way back in 2008. So what does Merkel herself say about all this? Well, she's defended her record. She condemned the 2022 invasion, of course, but she also said she stands by her choice to block Ukraine's NATO bid in 2008, arguing that it was the right call for that particular moment. It's a defense that just adds another layer of complexity to this whole debate about her legacy. So, where does that leave us? Was she the ultimate pragmatist, the crisis manager who navigated storm after storm with a steady hand? Or did her cautious, consensus-first approach accidentally create even bigger problems for the future? How history will ultimately judge the Merkel era? Well, that book is definitely still being written.